Good morning. Today I'll like to take you for a walk with our poor man's Leica, and I would like to show you how can we make our little Olympus into Leica-like camera with manual focusing. And I do not claim that this camera will give us Leica-like results, and I have no intention of pretending that I know it will. However, just for the sake of fun, I'm calling it Poor Man's Leica. Today's hero will be Olympus e-pl7 together with TTArtisan 25mm f2 lens with this beautiful metal hood and a metal aperture ring that clicks very nicely. And as you can see here, while I'm turning the aperture ring, now I'm turning the focus ring, which brings 3 results. Now when I'm turning the aperture ring, the aperture blades open and close, showing us the full spectrum of light that this lens can let into the sensor. This camera costs me around 450 Polish zloty, which is around 100 bucks, because I paid for the body with a broken lens 350. I sold the broken lens for 100, so the camera itself was 250, while the lens I bought on AliExpress on Black Friday for 200, together with a lens hood and some filter that I'm not using because it was a poor quality glass. So there you go. It looks really nice. It gives you this little bit like Leica feel or Fuji feel because you have manual focusing, and you can just pay the fraction for the price that they demand, probably the price of a Leica lens cap for this camera. And it looks pretty stylish in my opinion. Truth to be told, I was quite lucky with a seller from whom I was buying this camera, because he was kind enough to check the camera before he put it into the box, and it turned out that the lens, the pancake 14 to 42 Olympus, stopped working, and he wanted to give me back the money, to which I said I would like to buy the camera still, but let's negotiate the price, and thus I ended with a very good price for the camera and managed to sell this lens. It doesn't always happen that you meet such an honest seller or that's such a good bargain, but it's worth waiting. I invite you today to heat and power plant Szambierki, and let's see what kind of pictures can we take here. So in this very industrial settings, let me show you what kind of settings did I set in my camera in order to shoot black and white. The weather is not super nice today, so there's no sun, it's all a little bit cloudy, one giant softbox. It will be perfect for black and white photography. So here will be my settings for today. When we hit the OK button, our super control panel will show up. And the first thing that I've set here is monotone. I really like black and white pictures, thus I've set the monotone. And it's already also set on neutral, not on some sepia or something, but on monotone. Monotone neutral. The next thing that I've set is sharpness -1, because I don't like this like super extra crystal sharp or clinically sharp pictures. But I added some contrast, so the contrast, as you can see here, is on +2 to make them pop a little bit like some films did. I also turned on red filter here, as you can see, because red filter nicely pulls out the sky when we have some clouds, and they will pop nicely in the pictures. If there's a chance, I will show you what it looks like in some photos which I took a little bit earlier. Here you can see that, how the clouds really pop in the picture thanks to this red filter being on. So another thing that I turned on here is how I'm shooting. I'm shooting JPEGs plus RAW because then I can edit them. One more thing I need to set is the um, IBIS, so the stabilization. When I click on info, I can change the value of the focal length. Unfortunately, we don't have 25 here, but there's 24, which is close enough. So I'm setting it at 24 so that the camera will be able to read it properly. Another thing that I have set here is the program mode, as you can see. Because in program mode, I can just control the exposure with a wheel. I'm controlling the aperture with the aperture ring, but I'm controlling the exposure with the wheel, so I can make the picture brighter or darker. As you can see here, I'm darkening it. Now I'm making it brighter, and it shows on the screen. I'm making it darker, so I can have full control of how the picture would look like. So one more thing. So now let me show you one little thingy that I bought to clip the phone onto the camera so that you can have like point of view type of experience today. For me, it will be much easier to shoot with this camera and with this lens having free hands. So you'll be seeing more or less what I'm seeing while I'm shooting. But before I do that, there's one more very important setting that I forgot about. So this one more setting that I've set on the camera is the aid to help me to really acquire focus. So as you can see here, when I press the magnifying glass button, what it'll do, it will zoom in the point where I have the autofocus point. Right now it was pretty low, so let's try to put this point into some better spots, more or less in the middle of the frame. So now if I press this magnifying glass once more, we can see how it magnifies the area that the point is pointing at. And this helps me to acquire focus. If I tap on this other button, I programmed it as focus peaking, and it shows in white whatever is in focus. However, for me, I found it way more effective to use the zoom button to focus instead of focus peaking because it's more accurate. Okay, so now let's go to our first shooting part. So here's our first scene. It says do not enter, but everybody walks in there. All the locals enter and just walk through the area. So let's test out our first picture. This will not be the state-of-the-art picture, but you'll see what kind of picture the camera does. I cannot have like exactly the same view as I have with a camera because my phone doesn't zoom in the video mode too much. But you will see more or less what I'm seeing while I'm taking pictures, and the pictures will pop up on the screen. So this is the first picture. And this is, as you can see, an extremely industrial area. The plant doesn't work anymore. There are plenty of holes in the walls with some tracks visible from them. I really like these pictures of holes in the walls with tracks. I don't know why. I find them quite calming, I think. However, the plant that we are visiting now, we will not enter inside because it's probably not allowed. For sure it's not allowed, and it's not working one, but you can like walk through this area and just make a shortcut, and this is what all the locals do. As you can see, there are plenty of holes in the walls, and I like holes in the walls and little holes of hope that one day we will be able to get out of here and go somewhere nicer. Because Bytom, probably you don't know, but Bytom does not have the best fame among the Polish cities. So here's another example of a hole in the wall in black and white. As you can see, this contrast that we made a little bit higher is showing in this picture pretty nice. And with each picture that I'm taking, I'm using this magnifying glass to make sure that the pictures I'm taking are really sharp. And I find it more comfortable than focus peaking. Because to my eye, and my eyes are a little bit dying, but to my eye, the focus peaking shifts a little. And the magnifying glass allows us to really have the focus on point. Let's get a little bit lower. We can see nice cobblestone here. A little bit of old school. Will this be a presentation of masterpieces? Absolutely not. But there is never an intention for these pictures to be masterpieces. It's just to go out and shoot for fun. What is the greatest minus or downside of this lens that I'm using today? Well, I have it now for the second time. The first time I had it, I was using it with EM10 Mark II. I had a beautiful fox red edition of this camera, but the autofocus was not working. And at some point, I decided to sell it, obviously immediately regretting my decision. Anyway, when it came, the infinity was not actually at infinity. So when you turn the focus ring to infinity, you had to go back a little in order to actually have focus or have sharp picture when shooting at infinity. So there is a remedy to that, because this is a fully mechanical lens, and it comes with 3 screws that are holding the focus ring. But the problem is that one of these screws is as if glued, and this glue, man, this is something so difficult to loosen up. So my beautiful new lens already has some scratches and does not look new, because I was fighting with this glue that was on that screw or on that lens in order to loosen it to have this infinity at infinity. And now I can see it kind of moved or shifted a little, so I will need to adjust it. So then I'll make a new video about how to adjust this infinity in this lens. So the reason why I'm mentioning it is so that you won't be stressed when you receive the lens and you try to focus at infinity and it actually is quite blurred. Just turn back a tiny bit. This is how they come, because they are not calibrated to every system. It's basically mostly APS-C lens, so this is how it comes. Of course, you can leave it as it is and each time just turn back a little, because if you don't want to scratch your lens or you don't want to mess with the lens when it's new, it's also all right. Just in case you wanted to do that, I wanted to mention it. And here we have another window of hope, that there is a way out of here, that you can actually be set free. So another black and white window of hope for you. So let's go search for some new subjects. So here's a spot that I really enjoy shooting. There we have this tall chimneys. And at the bottom of one of these chimneys, there are these tiny little yellow doors. And I find it quite abstract that these doors are so tiny when this chimney is so huge. But it really looks good in the photos, especially when you shoot black and white. And this black and white with a little bit tweaked contrast can pull out these bricks that are used to build it. Yes, but this proportion is really cool. I really enjoy it. And here you can see that we are in this heat and power plant, Szomberki, in Bytom, Poland. And now we'll come a little bit closer to these yellow doors. As we get a little closer to these doors, you'll see how awesome it looks in the black and white pictures. Oh, I really like it. I like the contrast. I like the structure of the bricks. It looks really cool, really awesome. I mean, I like it. Your opinion may differ, but I'm here for fun. Okay, so I've already mentioned what I don't like this lens for, but that's basically the only reason. Because I truly love this lens. It's tiny, it's built like a tank because it's a metal built, and it's very sharp throughout the range, or however wide you open the aperture. I will later on show you how tiny it is without actually the lens hood, which makes it pancakey, as the lens usually comes without this lens hood, which truly turns it into a pancake lens. So here we have this tiny door, and they just look awesome. There is something about photography, isn't there, that we admire the old peeling door as the fantastic subject to photograph. I like it. So the pictures you'll see, this will be mostly JPEG straight from the camera with these settings that you've seen at the beginning of the video. Sometimes I will also show you the picture in color because I'm shooting RAW in order to be able to edit them. I don't change the settings because the weather is what it is, and it's pretty sunny but a little bit dimmed light by some clouds. Okay, so let me show you now with the example of this not too pretty padlock, what is the closest focusing distance of this lens. So let me change the aperture to f2, and let me try to find the minimal focusing distance for this lens. It's not too bad. You will also see how nicely it goes into the out of focus areas with this picture. So it's about that. And here's the picture of padlock. Well, another reason why I really love this lens is what I mentioned a little before. It's its build quality. The whole lens is built of metal. Even the lens hood that it came with, in my case, is built of metal, and it's really, really strong and rugged. And how do I know that? Well, I did drop it quite bad on the concrete pavement when I had my first version of the lens, and I dropped it with a camera because I missed my pocket, as you can imagine one does, and it fell on the ground and almost nothing happened to it. Only a little tiny spark of paint was missing at one of these rings, and apart from that, nothing else. It didn't even dent. Also, the camera survived without any problem, but the lens, no sign of any fall or any damage whatsoever. Absolutely fantastic. I could not recommend this lens enough. It's really worth buying. I really love places like this that whenever I turn, there is something interesting that I could photograph, and it makes life really nice. What I also love about this lens, and actually about any manual focusing lens, is that it slows me down, and it has a very soothing, almost therapeutic result, because then I don't need to hurry. I don't need to have an instant result. I can focus, I can take time to find focus in my picture and just slow down a bit in this crazy world that is constantly running. So one may ask, why this one and not some vintage lens, some legacy lens that there are so many of them in the market? Well, first of all, since I'm shooting in micro four thirds, it would have to be a wide angle lens to have the standard focal length. These wide angle lenses, so those like 24 millimeters lenses, they're quite expensive. And when you add to it that you need to have an adapter and the price of the lens and the picture quality, it makes it way more worth buying this tiny TTArtisan lens than this legacy lens. And I do own a Helios 44 lens, which is 58 millimeters. For micro four thirds system, it will be 116 millimeters, so it's a telephoto lens. So not only will it be big and bulky, but also it will not be the standard focal length of 50mm or 25mm for micro four thirds. So with this build quality and with this size, this lens also has quite a retro look. This lens is not as clinically sharp as the modern lenses are. It is sharp, however, all these soft parts of it, they have this retro kick or retro look to it that we all like in the vintage lenses. I used to use this lens on my EM10 Mark II that I used to own, and it really nicely served as an alternative to film photography, because these days, at least here in Poland, film is super expensive and developing it is also very expensive. So as a pretend film camera with pretend 50mm lens, for me it worked really well. It has a very nice retro styling, and the pictures that were coming out of it were also very nice. It's the same sensor that e-pl7 has, so I liked it. My wallet-friendly and eco-friendly film photography alternative. And this lens will work great with the bigger bodies, with smaller bodies. As I mentioned before, on EM10 it worked really great. And it looked great. So with EM10 or any EM1s or EM5s, it makes it a little bit easier because they have electronic viewfinders. So acquiring focus becomes a little bit easier. However, with pan camera, it also works quite well. And here we have some blooming tree. So again, F2. Let's see how these out of focus area look like. And you can see this a little bit retro look in these pictures. It's the beginning of spring, as you can see here. Things are blooming. Let me just find one which I can focus on, and here you'll see what I mean, that the out of focus areas have this retro look. They are not clinical, they are not super smooth. There is some chaos going on, and this chaos is this like retro hint. So chaos is the word. So let's shoot another one. Ooh, this is gonna be a nice picture. I already like it on the screen. So let's see what we can do here. What do I also like this lens for? I really like it to shoot portraits. However, I won't be able to show you any of the portraits that I shot with it because as I did not request any permission to publish anyone's face. So I really love black and white portraits taken with this lens at f2. They do have a character and they are really pleasant to look at, so strongly recommend it for this kind of use. So if you can only try, please do try, you will not be disappointed. So let me show you what I mean with the screws. Here's one screw, here's another screw, and here's the third one. So we need to loosen all these screws. So as you can see, I massacred one of the screws and the ring around it. But why did I do that? I did it to be able to move the ring to infinity and actually have focus on infinity, because if you loosen the screws, you can adjust it. So before you loosen them, you need to acquire focus at infinity, then loosen the screws and then just move the marker at infinity and tighten the screws. And it's a very useful thing, for instance, for street photography. You just set it at a hard stop at infinity, you set the aperture at 5, 6 or at 8, and you almost don't have to worry about focusing. Everything will be in focus. So that is pretty useful thing, and that's what they did during film times. I do recommend setting that. I don't know if I have the same problem with 35mm by TTArtisan. I would have to recheck it. But with this one, strongly recommend setting the infinite. So let me now show you what the lens looks like without the lens hood. Unfortunately, the mounting on it is on the filter thread. So you cannot have the filter while you have the lens hood on. It's not too well thought over, but there's a way around it. However, please notice how tiny this lens is without this lens hood. I do use this lens hood because this lens is quite prone to flaring, and these flares are pretty funny because they look like a halo around an object. I was not able to catch any halos here today, but it gives a pretty funny effect. For this to happen, the light really needs to hit the lens at the right angle. What else is to say about this lens? That it's pretty heavy because it's made of metal. It's more heavy than all these plastic fantastic lenses. Lengthwise, this lens is almost half the size of the kit lens with which the e-pl7 comes, this 14 to 42, the barrel one, not the easy one, which I totally do not recommend, the barrel one. But as you can see, because it's made of metal, it's a little bit front heavy. So it makes the camera lean to the front a little bit while it's on the strap. However, with e-pl7 that I'm using today, I don't find it very cumbersome because there's a nice grip and nice thumb rest at this camera. So I cannot recommend this camera as well, this lens enough. For the half of the price, for the fraction of the price of the more expensive Fujifilms or Leicas, you can have a lot of fun. I'm not saying it's like Leica or Fujifilm. I'm just saying you can have a lot of fun with it. So if you only have a chance to grab it at a good price, do not hesitate. Grab it. You will not regret it. I can also say that if I were to use Helios lens on this camera, it will be almost triple the size because of the adapter. So it will be way heavier and the build quality will not be as of this lens. Here, with this lens, everything works very smooth. The focusing ring is smooth, the aperture ring work really nice, while in Helios, oh well, everything is a little bit loose, a little bit somewhere, but definitely not near very good quality product. Here you have a really good quality product at hand and it fits immediately your camera. You don't need any adapter if you buy it with a correct mount. So please grab it and hopefully see you with the next video.